It was nearly midnight when we found ourselves alone in the university study lab. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, casting a sterile glow across the rows of empty tables. Most students had long since retreated to their dorms, but Alex and I remained, surrounded by textbooks, empty coffee cups, and the comfortable silence that comes with years of friendship. We'd been friends since freshman orientation 3 years ago, drawn together by similar academic interests and a shared sense of humor that few others seemed to appreciate. I still remember the first time we met. Both of us awkwardly hovering at the edges of a mixer, relieved to find someone else who'd rather discuss obscure literature than participate in drinking games. The campus was eerily quiet at this hour, with only the occasional sound of security making their rounds breaking the stillness. Through the large windows, I could see the moon hanging low over the quad, illuminating the old oak trees that had witnessed generations of students just like us, studying, stressing, and harboring secrets they weren't ready to share. And I certainly had my secrets, particularly regarding how I felt about Alex. For months now, I'd been struggling with feelings that went far beyond friendship. Every study session, every coffee break, every late-night text exchange had become both a blessing and a torture. Being close to Alex while maintaining the charade of just friends was becoming increasingly difficult. I'd catch myself staring when Alex wasn't looking, memorizing the way the light caught those hazel eyes, or how Alex's brow furrowed in concentration while working through a difficult problem. These feelings weren't part of my plan. As a scholarship student with dreams of graduate school, I'd always prioritized academics over relationships. But some things you can't control, no matter how meticulously you've planned your life. I think my brain is officially fried, Alex said, pushing away a thick textbook and stretching. How much longer do you want to stay? The question hung in the air between us. It was a simple inquiry about our study schedule, but in that moment, it felt weighted with possibility. The responsible answer would have been to pack up and head back to our respective dorms. We had an early class tomorrow, and the security guards would be making their final rounds soon. But something in me didn't want this night to end, not yet. Maybe just a bit longer? I suggested, trying to sound casual. I still need to review this last chapter, and it's quieter here than in the dorms. This wasn't entirely untrue. My roommate had a habit of playing music while sleeping, and Alex's roommate often had friends over late into the night. The study lab offered a sanctuary of sorts, a place where we could exist without interruption. What I didn't say was how much I treasured these moments alone with Alex, how the simple act of studying side by side had become the highlight of my week. Alex nodded, seemingly relieved at my answer. Yeah, my roommate texted that he's hosting a small gathering tonight, which we both know means at least 15 people crammed into our tiny room. Alex rolled those beautiful eyes, and I laughed, feeling the tension in my shoulders ease slightly. This was why I'd fallen for Alex. That perfect balance of seriousness and humor, ambition and relaxation. In a university full of people either too intense or too carefree, Alex was refreshingly balanced. We returned to our studies, but something had shifted in the atmosphere. The silence between us felt charged somehow, like the air before a storm. I tried to focus on my notes, but found myself reading the same paragraph over and over without absorbing any information. Instead, my mind kept wandering to Alex, sitting just a few feet away, but feeling somehow both too close and not close enough. The sound of footsteps in the hallway broke my reverie. We both looked up as the beam of a flashlight swept past the door's window. Security, Alex whispered, though there was no need to be quiet. We weren't breaking any rules by being here. The study lab was technically open 24/7 during finals week. Still, there was something about the late hour that made us both instinctively lower our voices, as if we were indeed doing something forbidden. After the footsteps faded, Alex stood up suddenly. I'm going to get some water. Want anything from the vending machine? I shook my head and watched as Alex walked to the door. But instead of opening it, Alex paused, hand on the handle, then turned back to look at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. And then, in a move that would change everything, Alex turned the lock on the door with a decisive click. The sound seemed to echo in the quiet room. My heart began to race as Alex walked back toward our table, but instead of sitting down, remained standing, looking down at me with an intensity that made my mouth go dry. I don't want to be interrupted, Alex explained, voice soft but steady. And I think, I think we need to talk about something. Those words, we need to talk, normally strike fear into anyone's heart. But in that moment, they ignited a spark of hope I'd been trying to suppress for months. Could Alex possibly be feeling the same way I did? Or was this about something else entirely? A concern about my academic performance, a confession about applying to a different graduate program than the one we'd discussed attending together? My mind raced through possibilities as Alex pulled a chair close to mine, closer than usual, and sat down. "We've been friends for a long time," Alex began, eyes focused on the table rather than meeting mine. "And I value that friendship more than almost anything. But lately, I've been feeling things that go beyond friendship." Alex's voice trembled slightly on these last words, and I felt my own hands begin to shake in response. This was it, the conversation I'd both longed for and dreaded. The potential beginning of something beautiful, but also the possible end of the comfortable certainty of our friendship. "I've been afraid to say anything," Alex continued, finally looking up to meet my gaze. "Because what if I'm reading this all wrong? What if you don't feel the same way? What if this ruins everything we have?" The vulnerability in those words mirrored my own fears so perfectly that I almost laughed from the relief of it. All this time, we'd both been harboring the same anxieties, both afraid of destroying what we already had by reaching for something more. "You're not reading it wrong," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "I've been feeling the same way for months now. Maybe longer, if I'm being honest with myself." The admission felt like stepping off a cliff, terrifying but also exhilarating in its freedom. After months of carefully measuring my words and actions around Alex, the truth rushed out of me like a dam breaking. "I just never thought you'd feel the same way. I mean, you could have anyone on campus, and I'm just me." Alex's face softened into a smile that made my heart skip. "That's exactly why, because you're you. Because you understand me in ways no one else does. Because when I'm with you, I don't have to pretend to be someone I'm not." Alex reached out tentatively, fingers brushing against mine on the table. The simple touch sent electricity through my entire body. "But there's so much at stake. Our friendship, our academic plans. And what people might say," I added, giving voice to the unspoken concern hanging between us. We both knew that while our university was generally progressive, there were still pockets of prejudice, still people who would view our relationship as something to gossip about, or worse. Being gay or bisexual in an academic setting came with its own unique challenges. The constant calculation of how out to be with professors who might write recommendation letters, the awareness of which study groups or academic circles might be less welcoming. "I've spent so much time caring what other people think," Alex said, fingers now intertwining with mine more confidently. "Trying to be the perfect student, the perfect son, the perfect friend. I'm tired of it. I'm tired of denying myself something that could be amazing just because I'm afraid of what might go wrong." The conviction in Alex's voice gave me courage. "So what are you saying exactly?" I asked, needing to hear the words explicitly, needing the clarity after months of uncertainty and hidden feelings. Alex took a deep breath. "I'm saying that I have feelings for you, romantic feelings. And I'm saying that I think we should explore what that might look like, if you want to. No pressure, no expectations. Just us giving ourselves permission to see where this could go." The honesty of the moment overwhelmed me. Here we were, in the sterile environment of a university study lab, having one of the most authentic conversations of my life. The juxtaposition was almost poetic, clinical surroundings, raw emotions. I looked at our joined hands, then up at Alex's face. Those familiar features now transformed by the new context of potential romance. The same face I'd seen nearly every day for 3 years, yet somehow new in this moment of vulnerability. "I want that too," I finally said, the words feeling both momentous and inadequate to express the complexity of my feelings. "I've wanted it for so long, but I was so afraid of losing you as a friend that I couldn't bring myself to risk it." Alex's smile widened, relief evident in every feature. "So we're doing this? Whatever this turns out to be." I nodded, returning the smile despite the nervous flutter in my stomach. "We're doing this." The space between us seemed to shrink, the air charged with possibility. Alex leaned forward slightly, a question in those eyes. I answered by closing the distance between us, our lips meeting in a kiss that was gentle and tentative at first, then deeper as the initial shock gave way to the realization that this was actually happening. Alex's hand came up to cup my face, and I felt myself melting into the touch, years of longing crystallizing into this single perfect moment. When we finally pulled apart, both slightly breathless, the world seemed to have shifted on its axis. The study lab looked the same fluorescent lights, same institutional furniture, same textbooks spread across the table, but everything felt different. We were different. Wow, Alex whispered, forehead resting against mine. Yeah, I agreed, unable to find adequate words. We both laughed softly, the sound intimate in the quiet room. So what happens now? I asked after a moment, the practical questions beginning to surface through the haze of emotion. Do we tell people? Keep it private? How does this change our plans for grad school? The future, which had seemed so clearly mapped out just hours ago, now held 1,000 new variables to consider. Alex sighed, leaning back slightly but keeping our hands connected. I don't have all the answers. I think we figure it out as we go. Maybe we keep this between us for a little while, not because I'm ashamed, but because I want to protect this. Alex gestured between us. While it's new and fragile, give ourselves time to understand what we are to each other before we have to explain it to anyone else. The wisdom in this approach resonated with me. As much as part of me wanted to shout from the rooftops, another part treasured the idea of keeping this precious new connection sheltered from outside opinions and expectations. That makes sense, I agreed. And about grad school? We apply to the same places, like we planned, Alex said firmly. But we're honest with each other throughout the process. If one of us gets into our dream program and the other doesn't, we talk about it. We don't make sacrifices that will lead to resentment later. We support each other's ambitions, even if that means some time apart. I nodded, touched by the thoughtfulness behind these words. This was why I'd fallen for Alex. This ability to be both passionate and pragmatic, to dream big while remaining grounded in reality. And if we both get into the same program? I asked, allowing myself to envision the best-case scenario. Alex's smile turned playful. Then we find an apartment together and save on rent. Very practical. We both laughed again, the tension of the serious conversation breaking. For a moment, we were just us again, the same friends who could joke and tease and understand each other without effort. But now there was this new dimension between us, this additional layer of connection that made everything both more complex and more beautiful. As our laughter faded, Alex's expression grew more serious again. There's something else we should talk about. Coming out, or being out, on campus. I know you're more private about your sexuality than I am about mine. This was true. Alex had been openly bisexual since sophomore year, while I'd been more selective about who I shared my gay identity with. If we're together, that's something we'll need to navigate. I would never want to push you into being more visible than you're comfortable with. The consideration in this statement touched me deeply. I appreciate that, I said. I'm not ashamed of who I am. It's more that I've always felt my sexuality is just one part of me, and not necessarily the part one want to lead with in academic settings. But I also don't want to make you feel like I'm hiding you or us. We'll find the balance, Alex assured me, squeezing my hand. There's no rush, no timeline we have to follow. We can be as public or as private as feels right for both of us. As we continued talking, the late hour seemed to create a bubble around us where time operated differently. We discussed our fears and hopes, shared stories of when we'd first realized our feelings for each other. Alex had apparently had a moment of clarity during a study session last semester when I'd fallen asleep on my textbook and apparently looked unfairly adorable with highlighter marks on my cheek, and began the delicate process of reimagining our friendship as something more. Eventually, the reality of the time intruded on our conversation. It's almost 2 a.m, I noted with surprise, checking my phone. We should probably head back to our dorms. Alex nodded reluctantly. Yeah, we both have that 8 a.m. lecture tomorrow. Today, technically. But neither of us moved to pack up our belongings, both seemingly reluctant to end this magical interlude and return to the regular world. Before we go, Alex said, voice soft in the quiet room, I just want to say that whatever happens next, I'm grateful for tonight. For your honesty and your courage in meeting me halfway. I feel the same way. I replied, emotion making my voice slightly unsteady, even if I'm terrified about all the unknowns ahead of us. Alex stood up, pulling me to my feet as well. We'll figure it out together. That's what we've always done, right? faced challenges together, supported each other through the hard stuff. This is just a new version of that. I nodded, finding comfort in this framing. We were still us, still the same people who'd built a friendship strong enough to weather the stresses of college life. This new dimension didn't erase all that had come before, it built upon it. We gathered our books and bags in comfortable silence, stealing glances at each other that now held new meaning. When we were ready to leave, Alex walked to the door and hesitated before unlocking it. Once we step outside, we're back in the real world, Alex said, hand on the lock. Are you ready for that? I considered the question carefully. Was I ready for the complexity of navigating a relationship that would inevitably face challenges, both internal and external? Was I ready to risk a friendship I treasured for the possibility of something even more meaningful? Was I ready to be more visible on campus than I'd previously chosen to be? Looking at Alex, the person who'd been by my side through late-night study sessions, celebration dinners after acing difficult exams, and tearful phone calls during family crises, I found my answer. I'm ready, I said, moving to stand beside Alex at the door. Not because I'm not scared, but because some things are worth being scared for. Alex smiled, that special smile that had always made my heart race even before I understood why. That might be the most romantic thing anyone's ever said to me. Get used to it, I replied, feeling a new confidence emerge alongside my nervousness. I've been holding back cheesy lines for months now. With a laugh, Alex unlocked the door, the click seeming to symbolize our step into this new chapter. As we walked out into the deserted hallway, our hands found each other again, fingers intertwining naturally. The campus at night was quiet and still, the pathways illuminated by evenly spaced lamps that created pools of light in the darkness. We walked slowly, neither of us in a hurry to reach the point where we'd have to separate to our different dormitories. So, Alex said as we approached the central quad where our paths would diverge, would you like to go on an actual date this weekend? Something intentional, not just our usual hanging out reframed as romantic in hindsight. The question made me smile. I'd love that. What did you have in mind? There's that new exhibition at the art museum you mentioned wanting to see. We could go Saturday afternoon, then maybe dinner after? Nothing fancy, just deliberate. The thoughtfulness of the suggestion, remembering something I'd mentioned wanting to see, choosing an activity that would give us space to talk and connect, was so quintessentially Alex. That sounds perfect, I agreed, feeling a warmth spread through me despite the cool night air. We had reached the point where we needed to head in different directions, and both paused, reluctant to part. I'll see you in class tomorrow? Alex asked, though it wasn't really a question. We had the same schedule on Thursdays, a coincidence we'd both been grateful for when selecting courses. Save me a seat, I replied, our usual parting words now carrying new significance. Alex leaned in and kissed me briefly, a quick brush of lips that nevertheless left me feeling lightheaded. Always, Alex whispered, then stepped back with a smile that combined happiness and slight disbelief, as if this turn of events was still sinking in. As I watched Alex walk toward the East Campus dormitories, I felt a complex mixture of emotions: excitement, fear, joy, uncertainty. But underlying all of these was a profound sense of rightness. Whatever challenges lay ahead, whatever adjustments we'd need to make to our friendship to accommodate this new romantic dimension, I knew with certainty that unlocking that study lab door hadn't just been about leaving a room. It had been about opening ourselves to new possibilities, to vulnerability, to growth. I turned toward my own dormitory, the events of the night replaying in my mind. Tomorrow would bring the reality of navigating our new relationship in daylight, among friends and classmates and professors. There would be decisions to make, conversations to have, boundaries to establish. But tonight had been perfect in its imperfection, authentic in its awkwardness, beautiful in its bravery. As I reached my building, I looked up at the sky, at the stars visible even through the campus light pollution. The universe suddenly seemed both vastly larger and infinitely more intimate than it had when I'd left for the study lab hours earlier. Whatever happened next, I knew that something profound had shifted when Alex had locked that door from the inside. Not to keep others out, but to create a space where we could both, finally, let ourselves in. Total _char_count, 18,761.